Hello again. Thank you so much for joining me this Saturday. I'm Frederica Whitfield. All right, the 2020 race for president is growing bigger by the day. This afternoon, Senator Elizabeth Warren officially threw her name into the mix.
I stand here today to declare that I am a candidate for President of the United States of America.
She joins a crowded field of Democrats hoping to replace President Trump in the Oval Office. Several candidates are spread out across the country today, making their pitch to voters. You're about to look at live pictures right now of Senator Cory Booker in Iowa. He's hosting a meet and greet in Marshalltown after a busy day and a half campaigning in that crucial state. So let's begin in Massachusetts with CNN's MJ Lee, live from Lawrence, where Elizabeth Warren officially, made her announcement. Describe what it was like.
Well, Fred, the 2020 field just grew by one, with Elizabeth Warren making it official. For anyone that wasn't able to tune into this speech, they should know that we are outside of an old textile mill here in Lawrence, Massachusetts. This is the site of the historic 1912 Bread and Roses labor strike. This is when a whole bunch of women workers and immigrant workers walked out to protest wage cuts, and she used this as the backdrop to make the case about the central theme of her campaign, which is about people gathering together to take on powerful interests in a rigged system. Here she is. Take a listen.
We need to change the rules to clean up Washington, end the corruption. Now, we all know the Trump administration is the most corrupt in living memory. But even after Trump is gone, it won't do just to do a better job of running a broken system. We need to take power in Washington away from the wealthy and well-connected and put it back in the hands of the people where it belongs.
Now, interestingly, that was actually the only time that Elizabeth Warren said the word Trump in her speech, but it was clear that throughout the speech, she was drawing a contrast between herself and the president. First of all, on policy, she talked about a lot of the policy positions that are going to be central to her platform, whether it is about anti-corruption or taking on Wall Street, her new proposal to tax the wealthy. And then on the character front, she simply said that there is no room for bigotry in the Oval Office. Very clear that she was taking on Trump directly when she said that. Now, I should note, Elizabeth Warren next heads to New Hampshire, and then tomorrow she makes a couple of stops in Iowa, and then next week the travel continues as well. She is going to head to states like South Carolina, Georgia, Nevada, and California. So, Fred, these early states are about to get really crowded as more 2020 candidates jump into the race.
All right, crowded indeed. MJ Lee, thank you so much. So President Trump's re-election campaign already reacting to Senator Elizabeth Warren's decision to officially join the race, and they did so really preemptively. Let's check in with CNN's White House correspondent Boris Sanchez. So let's talk about this message.
Yeah, that's right, Fred. The Trump campaign firing back at Senator Warren for her comments about the Trump administration being the most corrupt in living memory. The president, through his campaign, trying to hit Warren where it hurts. Remember, just a few days ago, Elizabeth Warren yet again apologized for claims of Native American ancestry. The president, in this statement, again through his campaign, calling her a fraud. Look at this part of the statement sent out by Brett Parscale, President Trump's campaign manager. He writes, quote, "The American people will reject her dishonest campaign and socialist ideas like the Green New Deal that will raise taxes, kill jobs, and crush America's middle class. Only under President Trump's leadership will America continue to grow safer, secure, and more prosperous." Two quick things to point out, Fred. Noticeably, this did not come directly from President Trump himself. This was actually a formal campaign statement. It was not sent out by the president on Twitter, which is a bit surprising considering that is the president's preferred mode of communication. Secondly, the president's attack on Warren's socialist ideas. We got a bit of a taste of that during the president's State of the Union address earlier this week. A source close to the White House tells CNN that the president plans to continue that kind of rhetoric moving forward into 2020, and that he will paint any rival as an extreme leftist or radical, Fred.
All right, Boris Sanchez at the White House, thanks so much. All right, joining me right now, senior columnist at the Daily Beast, Matt Lewis, and co-founder and managing editor for the Beat DC, Tiffany Cross. Good to see both of you. All right, so Tiffany, you first, we heard from Elizabeth Warren there, strong messages of being a fighter, holding the powerful accountable, saying, and I'm quoting her now, race matters and we need to say so. And she also said, I'm not afraid of a fight, not even a hard fight, but how tough of a fight is this one going to be?
I think it's going to be a tough spot for her, a fight for her. She's found a really ideological sweet spot in terms of fundraising, so I think she'll have a great path there. I think it's going to be challenging for her, given the way the primaries are set up. We have to remember that California moved up their primary. That's Kamala's home state, and she's going to have to, dig in deep there to unseat Kamala. But also, I think there's this misunderstanding that African American voters are in lockstep with Kamala Harris or in lockstep with Cory Booker, and that's not quite the case. I think she's found that space that speaks to economic equality, which spreads to a lot of voters and is a universal message that a lot of people can get on board with. She's also laid out a really good economic plan in terms of tax cuts. I mean, her tax plan is well received by people all across the country. So I think it's an uphill battle because she's not running against Donald Trump. She's running against a larger platform, but I definitely don't think it's insurmountable.
Yeah, she highlighted the disparity, of between white home ownership and black home ownership, and how much more difficult it is, to have black ownership, collectively. So, Matt, what do you think about the president preemptively, or at least the president's reelection campaign preemptively, being critical of Elizabeth Warren, whereas they've been fairly quiet on the rest of the Democratic field, except for one time the White House advisor Kellyanne Conway, talking about Cory Booker sounding like a Hallmark card. But this statement from the Trump-Pence campaign, what does that mean? That there is a real fear?
Well, I do think they take her serious, but I do also think they have a valid point in the sense that, look, Donald Trump is vulnerable and should be vulnerable. But if you look at the direction Democrats are heading, they've got problems, right? So you've got Elizabeth Warren with these continuing scandals, the latest being her listing herself as an American Indian on her application for the Texas State Bar. She even says, there may be more to come. She might have listed herself as Native American or American Indian.
And she made no mention of heritage or anything during this speech, by the way, today.
And then you've got... Let's go down the list. You've got Tulsi Gabbard, who refuses to say that Syrian dictator Assad is an enemy of America. You've got Amy Klobuchar in a scandal over basically verbally abusing staffers of hers. You've got Kamala Harris, who recently talked about outlawing or not allowing private insurance. You've got Democrats talking and endorsing, in some cases, third trimester abortion, which is very unpopular. You've got AOC talking about a 70% top tax rate. I think Democrats have a golden opportunity to beat Donald Trump, but they do seem to be going to the left. And they do look at what's happening in Virginia right now. They have a lot of problems. I would not feel terribly confident going into 2020 if I were a Democrat.
Can I just respond to that?
Yeah, chime in on that. Are these problems, or are these blips on the radar, or significant?
I think there are challenges, certainly, in the Democratic Party. But, Matt, you have to acknowledge, when you look at the challenges that Democrats who are, running for office versus the man who's actually in office, we can go through the 35 indictments, the 7 guilty pleas, and on and on and on with the Mueller investigation. And I think even the president's policies. I think it's ridiculous that we keep resurfacing Elizabeth Warren. And, certainly it was a faux pas and offensive to Native American culture for her to list herself as that. Let's not lose sight of the constant barrage of racist commentary coming from the president himself, of repeatedly calling her Pocahontas, of raising issues like Wounded Knee very inappropriately. So I'm not sure that that's a fair comparison. Also, some of the challenges that you listed, I think these are not people who are on the ballot. Certainly there's challenges with the Democratic slate in Virginia. Certainly, people have challenges with AOC. I think that she's laid out a really sound policy, but there are people who can disagree with it. These people aren't running for president. In the candidate slate, I think the candidates that you see on the Democratic side at least look more like America. They reflect what the country looks like. On the Republican side, it's becoming increasingly an older white male party, and they're going to have to reconcile that with the changing face of America.
Matt?
So I say, first of all, I agree with you in terms of the Republican electorate being predominantly old white men. I would say I think that if you look at people like Marco Rubio and Tim Scott and until recently Mia Love and Nikki Haley, Bobby Jindal, the Republicans have done fairly well at electing a diverse Republicans.
Have they?
I would say so.
I mean, you listed two people, and the other people are out of Congress. When you look at that chamber, I mean, you see on one side of the chamber, it looks like America. When you look at people who are currently serving in office or in this administration, I think you're going to run out of an ethnically diverse slate really quickly.
And then the electorate would really be looking at policies that shape or a reflection of this kind of diversity, that you both are speaking to. So, Warren, she did try to speak to that. She also made a real promise and pledge as it pertains to money and, what kind of campaign money, should be acceptable in this day and age. Listen to what she had to say.
We also need to end the unwritten rule of politics that says that anyone who wants to run for office has to start by sucking up to a bunch of rich donors on Wall Street and powerful insiders in Washington. So I'm opting out of that rule. I'm not taking a dime of PAC money in this campaign. I'm not taking a single check from a federal lobbyist.
So, Tiffany, that's resonating with the audience there. You can hear the cheers, but is this creating an obstacle for her? Or a real opportunity?
I don't think it's going to be an obstacle. I really don't. Like I said at the beginning, I do think that she's found that ideological sweet spot where she's going to be a fundraising powerhouse. Why that's important, again, is because the way the primaries are set up, with California being so early, you're looking at a $5 million baseline to even be competitive there. Then you've got South Carolina. I mean, she has a chance to eclipse both the other candidates, because if you have Cory Booker and Kamala Harris splitting the African-American vote, again, this is a place where she can shine. And I think that's going to be something that could potentially happen. The path to the White House that certainly runs through the black community. Also in 2020, Hispanic voters are going to make up, or eligible Hispanic voters will make up a large share of the voting electorate. So she speaks consistently to communities of color. I mean, these are people who will write a $5 check, and that's different from taking PAC money, because a $5 check is a vote.
And so Matt, with Warren's announcement today, we're talking about 8 Democrats now officially in the race. It will be 9 tomorrow when Senator Amy Klobuchar, is expected to join. Do you see that Democrats will benefit from this kind of crowded field, or any one Democrat might benefit from a crowded field similar to the way, Trump benefited from a crowded field before it was whittled down?
Look, I just think overall the problem is that for the Democratic Party in general, I don't know that this benefits any one person. But I can tell you, watching the 2016 Republican primary very, very closely, you have this tragedy of the commons problem, which essentially is perverse incentives. There's an incentive for any one person to say or do controversial, provocative things to get attention, but collectively it hurts the Democratic Party. And when I look at what's happening right now,
it almost seems as though there's a vow against doing that among the Dems, at least thus far.
I mean, and you talk about people who are actually not on the ballot, like AOC, but she's really the leader of this party. And you look at Democrats signing up for her Green New Deal. Things that are going to things that sound these things sound great right now in a general election against Donald Trump, when you can basically look at the Democratic Party and whoever the nominee is. I mean, they're all off to bad starts right now, and you can say they want to raise taxes to 70% on the highest tax bracket. They're in favor of late-term abortion. They want to whatever. I think that if Democrats have a great chance, they've got a weakened Republican president, and they're running to the left, and it doesn't make sense to me. To me, that's the big story. Why are they doing this right now?
Do you see that there will be infighting, of those who are pledged to campaign, or will it all be cordial?
I mean, we do have to remind people that they are not running against Donald Trump right now. They're running against each other. So certainly there are going to be political and policy disagreements. That's to be expected with any primary race. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You also will have a healthy exchange of ideas and ideology. So I don't think it will be reflective of what we saw in 2016 in the Republican electorate. But I just want to correct a few things. Obviously, AOC is not the leader of the Democratic Party. I think there's been this concerted effort on the Republican right to elevate her to such a space. But she actually reflects a good portion of the people in her district. And that's why we have Congress. That's why there is the legislative branch, the co-equal branch of the government, to have her opinion in there. She's in no way the leader of the Democratic Party.
Maybe you're at least both in agreement that she is a force.
She is a force. I agree with that, Fred.
Definitely a rising star. All right, Matt Lewis.